Hey, it's Stacey. And the tip of the day has to do with dates. So these are the dates that you can see on the very first page of your child's IEP, the Individualized Education Plan. So the dates would have to do with what's the first date of the IEP, so what date was the IEP written, what's the date that it ends, because you have to have a new IEP completed by that date, or else the IEP is out of compliance. The other really important date is the evaluation date. What you don't want to do is just make the assumption that you're going to get a really good heads up on when the IEP is due. So many families call me and say, oh, the school called and we have a meeting next week. And if you have a pretty flexible schedule and you're able just to show up in a moment's notice and you don't need a lot of time to look at your child's IEP, I guess that's not so bad. But they should be sending you a draft of the IEP 5 days before the meeting, which means that they should be contacting you a couple weeks before to set the date, especially if they know that you want to bring someone with you. And I encourage you to bring your sister, your brother, your husband, your wife, your neighbor, an advocate if you feel like you need somebody to help you kind of guide you through the process. But it's really important because if you get there and they say, oh, Johnny had a really rough morning this morning, you're going to have a really hard time focusing on the rest of the meeting because you're going to be thinking, what happened? And what were you doing? And what was he doing? And how is he now? And should I bring him home? And is he sick? And you're going to be wondering about a million things. So seeing the IEP for the first time is definitely not good at the IEP meeting. And also, if you have someone with you, that even in that moment, if something kind of wonky happens like that, you can still keep your wits about you because you have somebody that you know, that you entrust, that can kind of help guide you back to where you need to be so that you can get back on track, even if it gets a little hairy. So you want to know about the dates because you need to stay on top of it. So if the IEP, let's say, is due on October 1st, so in September, you need to shoot your ESC specialist an email and say, okay, so my daughter's IEP is due on October 1st. When can we set the meeting? So start thinking about that well in advance. The evaluation date, you want to know about that too because that a reevaluation plan meeting needs to take place well before the due date, because if you guys all decide as a committee or you as a parent, parents do have the rights to request an evaluation, even if the school staff doesn't agree with it. If you feel like there is a need for an evaluation and you advocate for your child and you tell them why it is that you think an evaluation is important, they have to allow you to sign that consent to evaluate. So know your rights so that you can exercise them. There's really just a couple reasons to why you would evaluate. So one is if you feel like your child's really not learning and maybe the school's not using a curriculum or is unaware of a better curriculum that might really teach to his or her specific style of learning, and you need some more information, help figure out why are we hitting this bump and how do we get beyond it? How does my child process? And what would be the best type of approach or curriculum to use with them? That's a great reason. The other one is if you're looking at different eligibilities. So if your child is young, and so let's say they're under the age of 6, and they have the developmental delay as their educational eligibility. If they do not get another eligibility when they turn 6, the day they turn 6, they will lose the eligibility, lose the IEP. So you want to make sure that you stay on top of that so that there is no lag if your child needs it. Now, I'm sure that there are some kids out there who receive the services up until the age of 6 as a developmental delay and then are doing okay and don't really require the supports that come along with an IEP. But if your child's not one of those kids and you know that they're going to need ongoing support and the educational eligibility is developmental delay, you definitely need to stay on top of that the year that they're 5 so that you can plan in advance so that there is a smooth and seamless transition onto the next level of the IEP. Okay? So stay aware of those dates. Be in contact with your school. Let them know that you're watching the dates and request meetings when you need to. If you're not getting the draft from your school the 5 days before the IEP meeting, let them know that you understand that you should be getting it, and ask for a copy of it so that you could sit home on your couch when everybody's asleep and read over it and maybe email the school some of the concerns that you have. And remember to put those concerns in your parent input section of the IEP. Okay? And remember that in knowledge, there is strength.